Nyika ndinogara ndichitaura nditi nyika yakafanana nezipi. Ine mapoka maviri, mativi maviri. Kutoti zipi ivharike inoda mativi maviri kuti abatani, awirirane. Zvino zipi yeZimbabwe yakarusa.
This is the FreeTalk. Me, your boy, Dara. Zimbabwe is young people who have excelled in different fields, and they have also committed to work towards building brand Zimbabwe and making it a better place. But in this country of ours that is so polarized politically, sometimes people are painted with brushes and they're looked at in different ways for deciding to support certain political persuasion. But here on this, the FreeTalk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation, we are for diversity of views, diversity of opinions, and we allow all Zimbabweans to be heard. And we track the successes of young Zimbabweans who have made it and who have chosen other political paths. Now join me on this, the FreeTalk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom, as we discuss the young people, the politics, business, and the future. Join me after this break. Welcome back to this, the FreeTalk, in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. I'm your host as usual, Dara B. Now this evening I'm in conversation with Sheikh Mo Wellington Tiburwa. He is a young entrepreneur. He made it the Forbes under 20. He has experience in energy investments. And we're going to be talking to him about business, entrepreneurship in Zimbabwe, the politics, and the future of this young democracy. Now, welcome and thank you very much for joining me, Sheikh Mo.
Thank you so much, big brother Dara.
Amazing.
We've been watching you over the years, and you've been doing a very good job.
No. Thank you. I'm blushing. But let us get to the chase. Mm-hmm. Just briefly, people want to know who is Sheikh Mo.
Maybe I'll start from a perspective that I'm just a simple boy and a simple person who doesn't have a lot of things that he is known for. But I've been raised in a family of a single parent, and I managed to also acquire my success through different businesses that we can discuss in this conversation. And it is through those experiences that has made me to be who I am, and that has made me to have the orientation that I have upon life. And I believe from my experiences, I can share some little snippets of things that I've learned over the years that I feel like every Zimbabwean or every young Zimbabwean has to know. And it will also be able to give them a certain perspective about our country that most people don't have. So in a nutshell, that's me.
You say you have succeeded in business as a young person, and you made it on the Forbes under 30. That means you succeeded in business, and Forbes recognized you at under 30 years old.
Yeah.
Many Zimbabweans look at Zimbabwe as a doom and gloom and a place where business cannot thrive.
That's true.
How did you manage that?
Personally, I would say what is very critical in life is who do you associate yourself with? That's point number one. If you play with different people that have got a different mentality, those people are going to convince you or they are going to brush you with their mentality, which might not be successful. But if you play, I always say to my friends, if you play with 5 millionaires, definitely if you are not, you are going to be the fifth one. Simply because of the mentality that those people are going to culture and give you as a habit. So I learned that at a very young age to say the people that I associate myself with have got a direct rub off of behavior, character, and even my mentality towards the situation. So there are different Zimbabweans. There are people who say Zimbabwe is a place of doom. And then there are people who have been able to make money within the Zimbabwean circles and they understand how to maneuver around our economic hardships, our political polarization, and then ultimately become successful. And that's the reason why I was able to be successful. I was given a mentality to analyze different opportunities that come within the environment or within the borders of our country.
Yeah, but Sheki, in Zimbabwe, if you want to look at people who are successful, they're either politicians, corrupt, and thieves.
I knew that question was coming.
Are you any of this?
No, I'm not.
And have you associated yourself with any of these? Because these are the successful people in Zimbabwe right now. If you throw a stone and hit a successful person, you're likely to hit a corrupt person or a politician or someone heavily related to a politician.
Okay. I'll give you a one thing that we cannot separate. You can't separate success from politics. If you are coming from the civic society, whether you're a business person, I think last week you saw the weird ZCon that was happening in Vic Falls. No matter who you are, if you're a kingpin or if you're a player in any economy, there is no way you can distance yourself from the ruling government. You can't separate that, especially depending on the ability of your contribution to the economic development. So you can never have an enterprise that is probably contributing a certain percentage to the GDP of the country that is meaningful and recognized probably by RBZ Bank. And then you are not recognizable. There's no way you can do something like that. Because number one, for you to be able to funnel investments that are going to come into the country, you need to be aligned with the constitution and you need to be aligned with the people that are ruling within that particular country. And that gives people what we call political continuity. They want to know if you're going to invest 1 billion in Zimbabwe, are we going to retain that investment? And you can never be able to convince a person who wants to bring in money in certain environment when you don't have access to the people that are within the legislation system, whether it's a minister, whether it's a councillor, whether it's a head of state.
But in other countries, business people have been successful without necessarily supporting the ruling party.
But give me one country that we've got a business person.
Elon Musk does not even like Joe Biden, but he's very successful.
I'll give you a very good example. That's a good one. Elon Musk does not align with Joe Biden, but Elon Musk contributes to the economy of America. And by his contribution, he has got a say and he can go and see the president at whatever time that he wants to go see. Starlink would never ever been able to get the license that they have right now. Even for them to be able to work with NASA, for them to have the license that they have currently, it's simply because he is aligned with the mantra of the government, not a political party.
Is it not about merit that should make people successful?
That's the actual community that we need to thrive on. That's the right thing to do.
But in Zimbabwe, we don't have that.
We have. I'm here. My father was not a politician. My mother, until today, she's a teacher.
Econet Strive Masiwa, hounded out of his own country, had to struggle to go to court after court to file just to get a license. That can't be a country that is ripe for capitalism.
But if you look at this data, let's look at the example of one good businessman I respect so much, say Strive Masiwa. There were challenges that were there that made him to struggle for him to be able to get a license. But if you looked at ultimately how he got the license, he also got assistance from one big political figure we all respect, who's the father of Zimbabwe, Joshua Kabongomo. Henceforth, until today, they actually have an acknowledgement within their system of that particular man.
That's what I'm saying is wrong, is it not?
But look,
if you want to step into business,
definitely,
Shaggy, you should just walk in and deal with your ideas without any political connections. What's sick about this country that allows that to happen?
You see where we are. Like, I like the introduction that you gave. You spoke about the young democracy. We are coming from a situation whereby we've been ruled for about 40 years with the regime that we no longer have today. And during that 40 years, we were maturing, and I believe we're still maturing in our own democracy. We were politically independent, but we were not economically independent, to the point that if you notice most politicians, if they get into parliament, most of them, they don't have a business acumen mentality, to the point that if they retire or if they are ousted in politics, they become miserable right after being ousted from parliament. I will not talk about the current election whereby we are seeing people, it's as if they no longer have any other life outside of politics. Their business, the way they do farming, the way they do agriculture, it's either they are embezzling the inputs that are supposed to benefit people and then they use that for business. That's not the mode of business. Henceforth, we have got the people that during that particular time, it was a challenge for a person to do business without association with politics. But according to the way I now see things currently, it's very possible for you to have business and you can choose to associate with the government or choose not to associate with the government, but still become successful. That's my belief.
You are saying this because you want to justify your association with President Emerson Dambudzo Mnangagwa.
Not even justifying. I will never justify. You see, I'll give you a very, and I'm happy we are discussing this and you're asking questions that are supposed to be asked so that the viewers can be able to understand. Besides the fact of having a relationship with the government and the relationship with the current or the incumbent president, I look at him from a point of a father figure. Simply because if my father was still alive, he was going to be at least probably his bigger brother, but with a very few years. So if I relate with him, I'm not only relating with him from a perspective of him being a head of state, I'm also relating with him from a perspective of being a father figure in my own life and in different people's life. The same way I would relate with Mr. Nelson Chamisa. If I see him, if I talk to him, he's like a brother figure. So it's not about politics, but it's about how I was brought up morally, how to respect the people that are senior to me. Even if I'm relating with you, if you still remember, I said I've always been following and watching you as a bigger brother. It doesn't have to do with politics or anything. It's just the moral code of us as Zimbabweans or as Africans. When you relate with an elderly person, respect them despite whatever that they believe in. You respect them.
In a Zimbabwe that is polarized, that is heavily polarized.
And it's true, it's heavily polarized.
What you're talking about doesn't exist, does
it? It does. It does. I've been a victim of a person who's being told or who has brushed to say, simply because we have seen you with the photo of the head of state or with this particular minister or with the vice president, you are now politically aligned. But is it true?
So you're just confirming that it doesn't exist, does it?
It does exist.
Where does it exist? Because you said you have been lynched.
Exactly.
For those associations.
It's because our people are not politically mature to understand that a person can associate with anyone that they want. Because I should never be affected to relate with Dara simply because he's not believing in the same political party that I'm believing. We can have different perspectives, but at the same time, we still remain brothers. That's how life should be. I should not link your success to the political party that you are aligned to. And if you're a person who's actually an asset, no matter the political party that wins the election, you always be a person who's resourceful and you always be a person who's also required by that particular government. That's what I've structured myself to become. I know where to get $1 billion if the government then wants to do a project. That's what makes me relevant. Because for you to be able to make money, Dara, it's all about what you know, who you know, and then obviously God takes care of the rest. So it's what you know that gives you the right people to connect with. And then after you've got what you know and who you know, then definitely you become successful.
Let us talk about the success, Sheki.
Sure.
What is the highlight of your success that you would look at and say, this makes you a successful person? Successful entrepreneur, rather.
Success, according to me, it comes in different definitions. But according to me, my success is oriented upon the goals that I've set upon my life and the goals that I've been able to achieve. Like, for example, you were mentioning me being listed in the Forbes magazine. To me, it was a goal that I wanted to achieve before I reached 30. And then at 27, I was able to reach that particular goal. That's my definition of success. And then my other definition of success is the positive impact I have to the lives that are around me rather than the money that I can spend on myself. How many lives have I chosen to touch positively, and how many people have I been able to put food on their tables? How many people have I been able to put roof on their shelter? In as much as I can be able to empower them to also become financially stable, but at the same time, I'm also owing it. Had I not had people who also assisted me from where I was to be where I am, I was never going to be where I am. So I always have to choose the world and the society around me as a theater of operating, at least putting a little bit of hope and light in someone's heart.
You in Zimbabwe, rather, many people are called entrepreneurs.
That's true.
And some live flashy lives.
That's true.
If you ask them what business they really run, you will not find
They can't answer that.
Yeah.
It's true.
What do you run?
Personally, I'm into the mining space, and I've done quite a lot of commodities. When it comes to mining, you can talk about gold, you can talk about chrome, you can talk about manganese. And I've also been able to successfully, actually what got me to be listed in the Forbes magazine was the energy side of my business, where I was able to structure a business that could supply the SADC region with LPG gas, simply because we don't have sufficient supply of LPG gas, and it's something that is now being preferred by many governments because it's clean energy. So that's another space that I run. I also have a logistics company whereby I'm transporting goods within the SADC region. You start from South Africa, Zimbabwe, Zambia. You talk about Namibia and Lesotho. So those are some of the things that I've been able to do that I can say these are things that are now under my portfolio that I'm doing, besides other things that I also do on the side. But these ones are the ones that I would say, okay, if you had to ask me what do you have in your portfolio, I'm into construction, I'm into mining, and I'm into logistics. And in mining, I basically, which commodities, we talk about gold, you talk about chrome, you talk about manganese. Those are the things that I've been able to do.
I'll just take a short break and we'll be right back on this, the Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. Welcome back to this, the Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation for Freedom. We're discussing entrepreneurship, politics, and people, and the future of Zimbabwe. And today, I'm hosting Sheikh Mo Wellington Tiburwa. Now, we were talking about your business just before the short break, but Sheikh Mo, name these businesses because we would want to know, right? Because I say this because in the past. May his soul rest in peace. But Jinimbi was touted as a very big businessman with serious business on his death. And up to now, we don't even understand which businesses he owned and their names. So I'd want to know.
So I own a SADC enterprise, which is known as Pavim Gold. And then I have another company which is known as Energy Plus. So Energy Plus operates not only in Zimbabwe, but it also operates in countries like South Africa, and Lesotho and Namibia. And what this company does is, within the SADC region, there is shortage of supply. South Africa is producing, I think, less than 12,000 metric tons of gas per month. And their demand is surplus to that which they can supply. So before COVID, we were getting our gas from Russia. And then we supply to Richards Bay. And after supplying Richards Bay, then they do the distribution of that. So you are mainly on the upstream of the supply of LPG gas. Whatever the gas that is going to come from Zimbabwe, whether it's other companies like whether quality gas, whether it's going to be what, you are then on the top of that niche to supply. And then when it comes to the mining sector, what I've been able to do is I know and I've worked with companies that are within the buying space of commodities. Like, for example, we have got a contract, we are supplying Venezuela with coal, simply because they are in high demand of coal. So we've got places that we are mining in South Africa, and we also have got places that we are mining within Angola. So that's mainly what I do when it comes to the mining sector. And then also within the Zimbabwean space, I've been able to acquire different claims of mining, which is your gold mining. And definitely, the reason why I was able to actually acquire gold mining license is simply because Zimbabwe is the cheapest country for one to acquire a mining claim and be licensed by the government. But not many people can understand that opportunity that we have within. For you to be able to do mining in Ghana, you need not less than $1 million within your account for you to be licensed as a gold dealer. But in Zimbabwe, if you actually have about $2,000, you can actually acquire a buying license. You can go and you've got 5 people under your license that you can then start buying with.
Yeah. When you talk about gold, I quickly think about the Gold Mafia.
I knew it was coming. I knew it was coming.
You have any links with the Gold Mafia?
I don't really have any links with the Gold Mafia, but I was also able to see it and to watch it and also be able to see what was happening. But my conclusion on that particular documentary was the timing of that documentary. Number one, we were in a politically charged environment. And besides being in a politically charged environment, it then ended up seeming like it's a political theatric to me. And I'll explain the reasons why I thought like that. Zimbabwe, we have been
So the facts, the issues that were there didn't matter to you?
The issues that were there were not holding water simply because there was no evidence of real gold that was smuggled. They gave us an impression that gold is being smuggled.
When people...
It's like us taking Dara a video when he's at the airport and he's pulling his bag, and we tell people that within that monarch there is gold. But we have not verified that.
But all the collaboration didn't matter to you. All the collaboration, all the people,
I'm happy.
The security, the head of security, who then had to write an apology. The dealers themselves acknowledging, including even an ambassador at large, meeting these guys and saying all those things on camera, although it was hidden.
But you see, Dara, when it comes to our constitution in Zimbabwe, we prove that a person is a criminal.
Let's not talk about constitution. Let's not talk about constitution at this point, because we all know that the law is not perfect. And
definitely.
And those who know the loopholes can go around them. Let's talk about the court of public opinion.
But you see, if you start to talk about the court of the public opinion, that's why I'm saying people's mentality can be swayed. You are a journalist, and the reason of a journalist is you are an educator of the masses. But if a journalist then become twisted and he comes and he presents facts that are insinuating that there is a criminal activity that has happened, and we even saw the financial intelligence unit coming to say all the people that have been named in this, we have done a due diligence, we have investigated these guys. Their assets were frozen. But these guys, we have not found any charge against them. That's what I follow.
Differently, on the same documentary, South Africa actually acted and found people to have been wrong and connected to this.
But if you
but
check
in Zimbabwe,
but if you check,
all have been cleared.
If you check at the issue of South Africa and the issue of SASFIN, if you check at that documentary, number one, it involved a lot of pieces, right? That's number one. There was South Africa, there's a part they were now talking about Ghana. South Africa, if it was able to find criminal activities and people that they could pin down according to what the documentary was saying, then that's justice. We acknowledge that.
But the question is, clear question.
Definitely.
You have people who write statements that they did indeed said what they said.
Definitely.
And they indeed used names of political leaders.
But if you check Dara, I cannot, if I'm paid to come and say Dara did this, people should go beyond my words and my statement to investigate if I'm being truthful. That's the nature of investigation.
Agreed. But
Definitely.
if you are paid to lie, and then you lie, and it's damaging to me.
Definitely.
And I do nothing about it. Even if you confirm that you are lying, I do nothing to you. What does that say?
But it comes back to your personal opinion of life. You can choose to sue me, you can choose not to sue me. That's your own constitutional right. To say, Sheikh is damaging my reputation, and what he has done is damaging to my business. But if you choose not to sue me...
This is not an individual thing.
Definitely.
The people who said what they said had their words had a damaging effect on nation.
Definitely. Which is why I say that documentary, I didn't like it.
On gold industry, right?
It affected us big time.
And the state, in its might, the state that keeps Job Scala in prison for over a year without trial.
Definitely.
leaves a person who, if they were lying, damaged this country big time.
But how can we prove the damage that has been done? The documentary was there to insinuate that there is smuggling that is happening at this magnitude within Zimbabwe, right? And we acknowledge definitely, even on Monday, I think the new minister of foreign of mining, Honorable Soda Shemi, came in and he said our borders are porous and we are losing minerals through these borders, which is a universally acknowledged thing that every country has got its own issue when it comes to the issues of smuggling. But the magnitude at which the documentary was insinuating that in Zimbabwe we are having that.
Let's not talk about magnitude.
Definitely.
Let's talk about the aspect that someone comes and sits there and say, I talk to the president and I will assist you in money laundering. And that person...
But was there a way to money laundering there?
More than
because Dara, I want you to see something,
okay,
Dara.
Okay, so for instance...
Wait, Dara, I want you to see something. We are dealing with a situation that it's a documentary that was published. And these are minerals that are supposed to benefit each and every citizen within this country. That's the basis of us having a ubiquitous amount of minerals within our country. They have to benefit each and every individual who's within the country, including you, including myself. Then we get to a point whereby the country that we are dealing with, it's a country that is suffering from problems like, which sanctions. One of the most thriving leg that is supporting this country when it comes to getting our revenue in foreign currency is the gold sector. That's one of the most thriving sectors.
Are you justifying the looting?
No, I'm not justifying the looting. I'm explaining the reason why the gold area was affected.
You're explaining the reason why the looting is happening.
No. I'm explaining the reason why people were to attack the gold mining simply because that's where we're getting our revenue.
Sheki, are you not ashamed to defend this? For instance, you have someone who carries a bag with 6 kgs of gold passing through the airport.
But Dara, look.
And someone says,
Dara, look.
I just carried the wrong bag.
Dara, I want to show you something. There is what we call inspired revolutions that have got underlying factors that can then push a political agenda and that can push a political regime change. Number one, how does that happen? Zimbabwe, the reason why we are where we are, we know about the Zidera Act, we know about the sanctions that we're dealing with, and our access to credit is very limited. Ever since we were sanctioned, we lost almost 80 lines of credit. And we have to find anything that we can do possibly as a country to get foreign currency in.
Including looting.
No, not looting. So you see, one of the only interests that we had that was thriving in Zimbabwe in bringing foreign currency is the mining sector. Even if you can check the physical budgets and everything that are coming to announce, to say, okay, the mining sector, we've been able to boost our gold reserve, we've been able to boost our production, and probably 60% of the gold in Zimbabwe is coming from artisanal miners because they are being empowered in that regard. That area is the area that is making the government able to meet its own demands, which includes even the paying of the civil servants. So if people want to insinuate and if people want to push a political regime change, what do? They suffocate the source of revenue. What is the source of revenue in Zimbabwe currently? Is the mining sector. Our agricultural sector used to be another line that was bringing money within the country. But right now, our agricultural sector is not as it was long back. We are failing to meet our own demands.
Are you disputing President Emerson Mnangagwa's claim on his SONA that agriculture has grown?
No, it has grown
to an $8 billion economy.
It has grown, but it has grown after how many period? Remember, it was last year we declared our agriculture when it ended that we have been able to produce about 380 metric tons of wheat. These are new features. It was never like that. Remember, we used to be the basket of Africa, and we lost that glory, and we are on the path of recovering and coming that. So when the president said we've been able to increase our revenue, it means, like I'm saying, it means the agricultural sector is now coming to support the mining sector. Because Zimbabwe is a mining country, it's an agricultural country, and barely a manufacturing country. We used to manufacture and sell our ammunition. Our ammunition is sanctioned. We can no longer sell to anyone.
Let's not talk about ammunition like as if that's the only thing that we used to manufacture. We used to manufacture stoves in this country.
Definitely.
We hounded out the Congo politically. We even politically hounded out DSTV when it wanted to set its head office in Zimbabwe until it set its head office in South Africa.
In South Africa and Zambia.
Yeah, because we look at things in politics, black and white, and not in meritocracy. Is that not our biggest problem?
No, that's our biggest problem as a country, which is something that we need to correct as a people. We are
Do you
doing...
think the current leadership has an appetite to correct that mistake instead of taking refuge in sanctions?
Personally, not even really taking refuge in sanctions. Personally, I feel like because of where we were as a nation and what we are going through as a nation, we are on a path of correcting our anomalies. But those corrections are never going to be done overnight. We still have our own problems, but at the same time, let's look at the progress that we are having as a country to correct those anomalies. And that can not only be left on the government, because corruption is not only being done at the government level. If you are to really start to look at the entire Zimbabwean hierarchy, even to simple people, there is corruption everywhere.
Corruption is a systematic issue.
Definitely.
And it's a political problem. Let's not...
It's a political and economical problem.
It's a political problem. Where there's political will to persecute, to ensure that those who are in corrupt are prosecuted, who are corrupt
Definitely.
are prosecuted.
There's a direct effect of the people that are going to be corrupt.
Yeah.
Definitely. That I agree.
So we have a political problem in this country.
We have a political problem in this country, and that political problem is simply because in Zimbabwe we don't know how to live in one accord, or we cannot be unified by the purpose of building Zimbabwe.
Who has the responsibility of doing that?
The person who has got the responsibility of unifying Zimbabwe is me and you. It doesn't start from the top, it starts from me. If I fail to relate with you simply because I don't agree with you politically, then we've got a problem. Even if the people that are at the top...
What is the purpose of leadership then?
The purpose of leadership is to inspire the people that you're leading. That's the purpose of leadership. And to solve their problems if they fail to solve their own problems.
So if we don't agree, we have a problem, right?
But what happens then if...
It is therefore the responsibility,
Dara,
according to you, I'm just bringing what you said.
What then happens when political leaders fail to acknowledge that we are different politically, but we should agree on the purpose of building this country? Because our politics in Zimbabwe, if you check it, if you go to political rallies, it's more of political rhetorics and character assassination, which is wrong.
I asked you a simple question.
Definitely.
Sheki. Who is responsible? You said it's me and you.
Definitely.
You removed leadership from this equation.
Definitely.
Leadership can never... And then I asked you, what's the role of leadership? You say it's to solve our problem.
Definitely.
And we have this problem, and leadership is failing to solve it. Who is leadership?
No, but, okay, let me take you back, Dara. We have got political parties within our space. Within those political parties, number one, there is no acknowledgement of the right that has been done by the other simply because we are coming from different political spaces. If the ruling party does this simply because I don't agree with whatever that they're saying, I don't acknowledge the development they've done. If something is done from the city council, which is being led by probably, for example, CCC, the main opposition party we have in this country, I will not acknowledge that simply because I don't feel it. But that's wrong.
Sheki,
yes.
Does it matter if I don't acknowledge that you're successful when you're successful?
It doesn't matter.
Exactly. So what are we talking about?
No, it doesn't matter simply because the issue matters when it comes to then dividing the people simply because of political reasons. Do you get the point? That's where the difference is. We allow our politics to entrench everything that we do to the point that if a person becomes successful within the country, like you said, if a person becomes successful in Zimbabwe, they are literally lying to say he's corrupt or is aligned with the government.
But if I put it to you, Sheki, that because the law is applied selectively in this country by those with power, by those with guns.
Okay, that's what you're saying.
If I put it to you, right, that because the law is being applied selectively, where you have Job Sikala spending a whole year in prison, and when you have someone who is alleged to have attempted to smuggle gold, spends a week in prison.
But you see, Dara, let me give you an understanding or an orientation of what you're saying.
Please do.
We have a situation of Job Sikala that you're mentioning. And it's so sad simply because of one reason. You and I, we have got what we call the moral side of law, whereby people talk about this person has done wrong, this person has done wrong, and this person has done wrong, and this person has done wrong. And then we've got the other side whereby we need to look at what the court is saying according to law. Right? And we as citizens, all we can do is to elect people, and when we elect people, they get into the parliament, and then they create what we call the acts of parliament, and then they are ascended, and then they end up becoming legislation, which is what we call law, right? And I believe, as a citizen, if I feel there is an unjust precedence that is being set by the court of law, my responsibility is to go and sit down with the people that are voted into power, which are members of parliament, to go and make sure they make enough requests about this purpose of justice. Because the reason why we are electing them to go into the House of Parliament is so that they can represent us as citizens. So if they cannot represent one of them and they are saying it's not just, why are they in there? Do you get the point?
I'm hearing what you're saying.
Why are they in there? Simply because, number one, you have to look at Job Scala. He is not an independent person. He is a person who is representing a political party. And I believe that political party has a right to defend justice if they see it not as fit. That's the purpose of being in parliament.
How do you defend justice? Parliament is a game of numbers. You vote for those who win.
But those game of numbers.
Just when we went to elections, ZANU-PF had close to 2/3 majority in parliament.
True.
The CCC had only 19 members of parliament. How do you influence the change of law in parliament?
But if you check that, that's what we agreed in our own constitution, that these people are going to become legislators and they're going to make law, and that law is going to govern us. That's what we agreed upon as a people.
Sheki, let us look at the real issues and the real facts.
Definitely.
The fact here is, if you have guns and I don't, even if we agree, we cannot agree because you have power and I don't.
But you know that
you cannot change law in parliament if you don't have the numbers.
But
and political parties, by their own nature, are to entrench themselves in power. They will not legislate themselves out of power, in the words of Professor Jonathan Moyo. Do you think ZANU-PF will agree to CCC with just 19 MPs to say change the law so that Job Scala can?
But is that not what we agreed upon as a people, to say this is our constitution? Because that constitution doesn't only belong to parliaments, to the legislators. It belongs to us. You and I, we are governed by that constitution. So you have to stand. If you want to amend the constitution, let's amend it to our favor.
And we digress. The issue here is not whether the law is good or bad, because the law is good, but it is being applied selectively. And when it's applied selectively, it creates self-help in people and divisions. And this is our major problem.
But if you look at it, Dara, you are never ever going to be able to convince me.
No, I don't want to convince you. I want you to answer.
Exactly. You are never going to make me answer a question that is coming from us as a people. There is no act that gets into the parliament, and the parliament is mandated to go back to the citizens, and then
the issue is not about the act.
The issue is about what?
The issue is about the application of that act selectively. Human beings
and
are selectively acting.
Dara, you see what? The reason why
that is unjust.
The reason why, if we have got issues that we fail to solve through the courts, there is what we call the world of politics. That world of politics, if I choose to come and then insult you, that's the world of politics. The reason why we create that world of politics, so that if people are feeling the pressure to say, okay, these ones are using the law to their own advantage. That's the reason why we go to elections every 5 years, so that we can put out the people that are abusing the power. That's my belief.
We just came from an election.
True.
And this election, the presidential
elections
are disputed.
Definitely. Like always. All our elections always been disputed.
Will this affect Zimbabwe going forward?
It will definitely affect Zimbabwe from the perspective that I've told you, that we have entrenched our politics to divide ourselves. Even when it comes to the issues that matter, we divide ourselves. Do you get the point? We had elections, and we have got what we call, this is the election coordinator and monitor. We agreed upon the referee before the election started. ZEC is going to be our official regulator.
When you say we, who are you talking about?
It's because ZEC is a wing of the government that is elected by the Constitution of Zimbabwe to be able to conduct elections locally. The reason why we've got ZEC as an arm and an independent player that is being able to become the referee of the election is simply because that's what our constitution says. The constitution represents us.
The constitution envisages an independent player. But many have argued that ZEC is not independent.
Then we have to prove it.
Is it not?
That's the paper.
Is it not being proven?
You see
I mean, on ZEC, is it not glaring that you take the daughter of a vice president and put them to decide a fight between her father and someone else.
Okay, Dara, I'll ask you a question.
Does that make sense to
Dara,
you?
I'll ask you a question.
Can you answer that question? Does it make sense to you?
What?
You and me sitting here, and I take my daughter to be an arbiter between a debate we are having. Does that make sense to you?
But let me ask you a question.
Does
if
it
the
make
person
sense
qualifies merit-wise, then it makes sense.
No, I'm asking you, does it make sense to you?
It makes sense. Dara, I'll ask you a question right now. If a person is occupying a position that meritly they deserve to be there because they are qualified, does it matter whose father they?
It does.
Why?
Because of the relationship that...
Show me any government under the sun that doesn't have people who qualify to be in positions.
If you would sit there, right? Even if your daughter was qualified, and they would come for an interview at a company that you work for, would you sit on that panel?
If my daughter...
Would you sit on that panel?
Regardless of... You say if my daughter...
Comes for an interview. Yes, and there's supposed to be a panel to employ. Would you sit on that panel?
I won't sit on that panel.
Why?
And that's the exact thing.
Why?
The fact is simply because I've got vested interest.
Exactly.
Right? But look,
I'm talking about the vested interest. Right. I'm not talking about the qualifications.
But look at this.
The young lady might or might not have the qualifications, but she does. Certainly.
But was the father part of the panel that recruited this person? Remember, you're talking about a daughter, and the father is a political leader.
No. You spoke about vested interest.
Exactly.
Right.
That's the reason why I cannot be on the panel.
I am not talking. Right. I just used vectors here.
True.
To change.
And I'm using your vectors.
Yes.
I cannot sit on the panel.
So I am not saying the father sat on the panel. I am now saying the daughter sat on the panel to decide the employment of the father. And the daughter has got a mandate to make sure. So now the daughter, with vested interest, is you sitting on a panel to interview your daughter. This is the analog. But if you look at it, Dara, let me ask you a question. Very simple and very straightforward. We are sitting. You are here to answer the question. Definitely. We are sitting in an interview, right? And then there are people who are adjudicating that interview. And then I'm part of the company, but I'm not part of the channel like you have said. My daughter walks into that interview and she's the most qualified person, and her intellect competence deserves her to be in that job. Is it wrong for that daughter to occupy that position? It is only wrong for that daughter to occupy that position if she is getting that job to decide your pecs. Whose pecs? Yours. But we are different. The father. Wow. If she gets into the job, and once she gets in the job, she says, pay my father this much. Then it becomes wrong. And this is what happened. She got into the job and she gave her father victory. That doesn't look independent. By all manner of definition, all those being said and done. Independent. You see that? Look, the reason why I like... You're sitting in your house, Sheikh. You're sitting in your house with your father. And you know that your father is going to be a vice president if ZANU-PF wins. And you are the one who is deciding. Is it given? How do you validate that she knew? You're behaving as if we don't know ZANU-PF. No, I'm asking. I'm saying you're behaving as if... It's insinuation that you say. That I'm giving a very good example. But your father was a vice president. But look, Dara, in ZANU-PF. The reason why I like the problems that we have, they expose how much citizens are not involved in things that really matter. And I'll give you an example why I'm saying so. I think our problems, Sheki, are those of being duplicitous and not accepting. You were talking earlier on about people not accepting wrongs because of certain political persuasions that they have. You are not accepting a wrong because of a political persuasion. You know, one thing about me, Dara, it's like when we were talking about the issue of smuggling. I even gave you a quotation of what the minister said. It's a problem that we have in the country, whereby our borders are porous. Yeah, but you do. When it's wrong, it's wrong. I acknowledge. You acknowledge that there are minerals that are being siphoned out of the country. But you do not acknowledge the fact that those who were exposed in the Gold Mafia because of their political connections have been left alone. You don't acknowledge that. You don't acknowledge the fact that it is wrong for a daughter to sit in what is supposedly an independent commission. So are you saying a daughter should then be disqualified simply because she's my daughter when she qualifies? If your parentage affects the independence, yes, because you stop The qualifications stop at the point where your independence is compromised.
Okay, let me show you something there. Let's say I've got a company, I'm running a company. I'm the director, I'm the founder. Or maybe I'm actually a CEO. And every time I'm sitting with my daughter, I'm training and lecturing my daughter how to run a successful company. Does that then qualify my daughter to also, if she has learned well enough from me, to occupy my position after my retirement?
It's your family business, right?
It's not my family business. Because being a head of state or being a vice president is not a family business, it's a national business.
I think we have dwelt on this a long time, but
Definitely.
But certainly, one of the qualifications to be a commissioner at ZEC is independence. And when you have a dog in the fight, your independence is compromised. You lose it on that aspect.
So the question now, Dara, is why then, if we had all these glitches, like you're saying, why is it the opposition allowed the election to run?
Do they have the power to stop it? Maybe you can tell.
You withdraw. The same way they withdrew and boycotted the SONA. Why didn't they withdraw from the election itself? Because if you say, in your view,
election boycott would have worked.
If they felt it's unfair, why do you go to play a match with an unfair referee and you know that the referee is unfair? Why do you play?
To you, it makes sense.
Why do you play?
What you're saying right now makes sense.
It actually makes sense simply because if people are complaining of legitimacy and people, you acknowledge, you say, okay, you know what, because of legitimate reasons, if we are not going to take part into this election, expose the person who's not legitimate by withdrawing. Why play when you know that I'm going to be beaten? And I was coming to the follow-up question to say, according to our constitution, if you feel like these things are not right, you've got 7 days window period to go and dispute. There's nothing like that was done.
You spoke about the political platform earlier on. You said that when you fail in the courts, you use a political platform. Don't you think that they're using a political platform because they believe, I mean, they have said they're using political platforms because they believe that the courts are compromised?
If they then believe that the courts are compromised, then you should make sure you secure and you beg enough members to support you. That's the purpose of politics.
But you're contradicting yourself, aren't you?
How?
You said earlier on they should have boycotted the election.
True.
Because they felt the judge was not...
I was asking why didn't they boycott?
You said they should have because they felt that the ZEC was not independent. Right? But you have a problem with them boycotting the court because they think the court is not fair. And you are one person saying the same.
But look, I'm saying, Dara, if you are saying ZEC is not a fair referee, that's what you said. And I said, the opposition party, they are there to make sure they deal with the elections that have got legitimacy. Why would they then agree to go to an election, seeing all those loopholes that you've highlighted? I was asking you.
In your view, you are saying that they should have stayed away from the election.
So if we have got an election, and then that election is coming, and then all the opposition parties withdraw from that election, what happens?
Douglas Monzura withdrew, didn't he? But he was forced to run.
But he withdrew, according to the constitution, the time was late for him to withdraw. Remember, you don't just wake up on the ballot paper. You apply for that.
Morgan Tsvangirai withdrew from the runoff, but was dragged to it.
But
you're a businessman. Have you not gone into business deals that you have seen that were literally unfair, but you have pushed to try and win?
If I see that the business transaction does not make sense, I would rather go and pay compensation.
Yeah, I didn't say make sense. I said unfair to you. But have you not gone in there and slugged it?
But how many times have we had elections and the same problem is coming and the same issue is being raised?
I'm asking you a simple question here. Have you not?
No, there's a time I will get to a point of understanding that this is not my... Because I cannot repeat the same mistake over and over again. It means I'm not thinking. Because if I'm thinking, I'll use my logic to say, you know what, the last time, this has been happening over how many years?
In your view, the solution to an unfair and unfree election is a boycott and not correcting the unfairness and the unfreeness.
But the question is, how are we even agreeing to have an election that is unfair in the first place and you're calling yourself an opposition party? That's the question. Because that has to be your mantra, to say, you know what, guys, we have done this over and over.
Morgan Tsvangirai has boycotted elections before. That has not stopped anything. Terence Mukupe actually became a legislator. Honorable Psychology Mazisa became a legislator on the back of a boycott. Elections were run. Nothing changed.
So what is to happen if something like that happens?
You tell me, because you are the one who's suggesting boycotts. I'm just giving you examples.
It's simply because
boycotts that have happened and achieved nothing.
You see, when
so
you have
how do
you see,
this is why I asked you the question. Your solution is it boycotting an unfree and fair election?
Is because you say the ZEG is not fair,
or making the election free and fair and acceptable?
But is the election not free and fair?
SADC said it was not. In its preliminary report.
Exactly.
The EU said it wasn't. The AU said it wasn't.
But the EU didn't say that.
The
EU didn't say that.
It did.
It was EU and SADC that wrote that report.
The AU actually,
and if you look
AU actually said it. If you listen to the AU report carefully.
But Dara, look, yeah, okay, let's talk about the SADC report. That report is submitted, and when that report is submitted, they have to review. It has to be submitted to the ministers of the member states of the SADC, and then they review that report. After they review that report, they ascend it to I think it's in August, whereby they have to discuss about that.
Let's not talk about the technicalities. The preliminary report that was read, that was presented, and this is already out in the public. And this was the verdict of the SADC Electoral Observer Mission. It said the election in Zimbabwe did not live up to the principles and guidelines.
What are the principles of what are the principles of an election in SADC?
No, let's not get into those details. But this is that was the net effect.
But if you check at it, Dara, that report got into our judicial system. That's not the mandate of the SADC. That report. The purpose of observers is to come into a country.
How do you call yourself an independent thinker when you repeat things that have been said by political players elsewhere without looking at them independently?
No, but I'm looking at it from an independent point of view.
The independent point of view is that it is a fact that the SADC said the electoral guidelines, the principles of the SADC guidelines were not followed. That's a fact.
If you check what they state, that's why you saw President Chisano, who was part of that delegation, the same day that Nevas Mumba brought the report, he went to the State House.
President Chisano was not part of the SADC delegation.
He was part of what?
He was not part of the SADC.
He was coming as what?
Please check your facts. President
Chisano
was not part. He came as an elder to Zimbabwe. He was not part of SADC.
But he
was not part of the SADC delegation.
But if you look,
he was not part of the SADC Electoral Observer Mission.
But if you come, okay, let's come back to the point that we have got the report that has been issued by the SADC report. Are they not supposed to action upon it?
Do they have power to act on it? There's a difference between a monitoring and observation. SADC observed, they gave their verdict, and they left.
And when they gave a verdict, what happens? Because remember, they give recommendations how elections are supposed to be run.
It remains with the country, Sheki. It remains with the country to decide what to do after the recommendation has been put. But it's a fact that SADC, the observer mission, said we failed to observe democracy in our own country and to run our elections properly. This is the fact that is until and unless SADC comes back and undoes what it said.
But if you checked on the Troika meeting that they had recently, did they even dispute the issue of the report that was given?
They didn't.
Because they were supposed to discuss that report.
They discussed it, but they didn't dispute it.
Why?
They didn't dispute it. They adopted it and they're taking it forward. They didn't dispute it.
But the issue is, I'm saying, if we have got the SADC that came to observe the election, and then they got into the constitutional issue of Zimbabwe, which is not part of the SADC observation team, what do you expect the country to do?
Let us move on to other issues. The President, you spoke about the boycott of the SONA. There's been a lot of talk around boycott. What is your view on that?
I think they did what was in their right. I think the question that I would pose is, everything that happens, especially when it comes to the political space, has to have an end game. You get the point. And them boycotting, to a certain extent, they boycotted after people had voted them into power. The reason why they took the oath of allegiance, that's what I was asking to say. You have got people that are saying the election was not free and fair. The same people, they go ahead and then they take the oath of allegiance. How do you even accept that we have won these particular seats in a system that you're saying is not legit? Which means even your appointing is not legit, if that's what you're saying. But we've got legislators that went and then they took this, they were sworn into the parliament. And then after they were sworn into the parliament, some of the people, it's actually their first time to actually get an actual job.
Sheki, if you were under 18 and you were to run a race, and someone who's 21 years old runs in that race, and you win, would you not accept the result?
I'm running into a race. There's a 21-year-old and I'm an 18-year-old.
It's an under 18 race, but someone who's 21
then runs.
But you win that race.
As a 21 or as an 18-year-old?
As an 18-year-old.
Why are we accepting a person who's 21 to run?
No, but then the person has run, but you win. You then find out that the person was 21, but you have won. Would you say, no, I didn't win, let's start again?
No, definitely I've won.
Exactly. Let's proceed.
But I've won. That's why I'm accepting.
You can accept. What you're basically saying is you can accept victory even if you've won an unfair race.
Definitely, but then why not participate? Because the race, winning of the race, is then the ultimate thing. The winning is actually the starting point.
Now, I wanted to. You spoke about people who voted for them and the end game. Maybe I stopped your thought there. Let's talk about that.
No, I was saying if they have an end game to the reason why they are boycotting, then fair and fine. But I'm just saying there has to be an end game. Because
but do you think that boycott was significant to the people who voted? I mean, did it affect people who cast their vote on their behalf?
No, it actually benefited them because they saved the taxpayers' money. Because remember, allowances were not given. That's the taxpayers' money. So it's a benefit. So if they keep on boycotting, definitely the taxpayers' money will be saved.
So why then are we worried about the end game? And
I'm not worried about the end game. I'm just saying, let's hope they've got an end game to the boycotts. It's as simple as that. You don't just wake up and then boycott. Let's just hope it's not a political theatric that they're doing.
But why would you call it a theatric? Probably they just decided to save taxpayers' money and watch the president's speech from their houses.
But is that what, according to them, if they take the oath of allegiance, it means they are supposed to adhere with the legislation of the Parliament Act. You are supposed to be there unless you are excused by the Speaker of the Parliament.
The law allows for a member of Parliament not to come.
But they have to communicate that with the Speaker of Parliament.
There are a certain number of days that a legislator, if they don't attend for a certain number of time period, then their seat is declared vacant. But if they miss 1, 2, 3 sittings, it's not a big deal.
No, but they
miss Parliament. Legislators miss Parliament.
Definitely, it's allowed.
Including ministers.
Definitely.
They miss Parliament every day.
But I'm saying, if they have communicated that I'm not coming to the Parliament with the Speaker of Parliament, and then they are
not obliged to do.
But they are obliged to attend.
They're not.
But because they are obliged by the Parliament, they are obliged to attend.
They're not.
If they are not attending, they have to file in. They have to call in to say, because of this particular reason, that's the reason why I'm not coming.
I'm not sure you understand the way Parliament works. You can fall sick and not go to Parliament.
Definitely, but that's the justification.
You can decide not to go.
Because you believe
that the debate of the day doesn't really excite you.
If there is no regulation to that effect, why then would they declare you as a non-competent and then they declare your seat vacant? If you keep on not going.
That's what I'm saying, that for a certain period of time.
That's what I'm saying.
But for one day.
That's the legislation. I'm not saying them attending is a problem. No, I'm just saying according to the rules of the Parliament, they were voted in to attend. But if they didn't attend, they did something that is within their right. But let's hope there is an end game. It's not a political rhetoric and it's not a political theater that they're just simply doing.
What would?
Because how would you feel? Because remember, the House of Parliament, that's the way these members of Parliament are going to represent all of us in that sacred house. So if you keep on missing and boycotting, then what?
But attending the president's speech is not representing the people who elected you. It's absolutely not.
But I'm saying if they keep...
But you agree with that fact?
Definitely.
Because if you attending SONA, attending president speaking at the official opening of parliament is by no means representing people who voted.
But that's where you articulate issues. That's why you say even if they're watching digital, then it's fine. Because they have to raise issue from the SONA so that they can then debate in the House of Assembly.
So why do you think that there's this noise about the CCC having boycotted? I mean, I saw ZANU-PF, I saw ministers angry, I saw threats to dog salaries.
But remember, these are politicians.
I saw threats to even go to the extent of deducting the Political Finances Act. I mean,
but you see, these are speculations that are being done by politicians. The politicians will always speculate. That's why I'm saying, let's hope these guys, they've got an end game to what they're doing. If they've got an end game, then it's within their right to do whatever that they're doing. It's a strategy.
What do you think is the future of this country? What does the future of this country look like?
I would say, you see, when it comes to the future of this country, there are so many things that we need to consider, which I'll probably list a few of them. We need to be able to sustain our citizens. We need to be able to sustain our own expenditure as a country. And I believe for us to be able to do that as a country, we need to grow our cake, as in our GDP has to grow. And the best thing that we can do as a state or as a nation is to do capital expenditure projects that are going to make sure they create employment to consume the high levels of unemployment that we have in the country.
Is that happening right now?
Yeah, I believe it's happening. That's why we have got the building of the roads, we've got the building of the dams, we've got the expansion of Wangi 7 and 8, we've got the airports. Those things, if you look at the airport, there's now an increase. We are now going to be handling about 6 million people. Obviously, then it means more workers that are going to be handling those people. So that's creation of employment. We talk about the roads construction that is happening. That's employment that is being created. And if we then start to consider the volume of transactions that are going to be done efficiently because we now have a functional road network, that's what's contributing to the future of this country. And we talk about 7 and 8 Wange. Definitely, probably in a year or two, we'll definitely be meeting our demand.
Zimbabwe is buried in a lot of debt, and it continues getting loans and loans, expensive loans, actually from China.
But the only way for us to be able to get out of debt is to be able to start producing, because productivity is the key of poverty.
You said it earlier on. We are a consumptive country.
Definitely.
So what are we producing?
We are now supposed to start producing. That's the reason why there's power 7 and 8. The reason why 7 and 8 is very critical in the development of this country is because the mining sector requires electricity. The agricultural sector requires electricity. The manufacturing sector requires electricity. So if we don't have electricity functional, then we are never going to produce. So for us to be able to do that, if we are borrowing and we are taking that borrowing into a capital expenditure project, then we are fair and fine. We know it's not going to be in the next 2 years, but at least we're heading the right direction. And if we are able to put measures that make sure if the borrowing is for development of a capital expenditure project, it has to be done for that. That money doesn't have to be embezzled. That's what we need to do as a state.
But money is being embezzled in this country, is it not?
Every country there's embezzlement.
No,
whether it's South Africa, whether it's anywhere.
Are you justifying embezzlement in this country?
I'm not justifying embezzlement.
Because it's happening elsewhere?
No, I'm not justifying embezzlement.
You said the money should not be embezzled.
Exactly.
Then I said, but it is being
That's
embezzled.
a checks and balance that the government has to put. If they borrow money to say we want to build 7 and 8, that money should be used to build 7 and 8. That's the reason why I'm saying we have to be very diligent to check if money is not being embezzled. So in this case, we borrowed to build 7 and 8, and 7 and 8 was delivered and was commissioned. Happy days. Wange is now producing about 900 something megawatts a day. It's actually now contributing more than Kariba is doing. So it means on that regard, we borrowed and we used it wisely. The same applies if you borrow to build roads, if you borrow to build Bait Bridge, then let's make sure the border is built according to what we need. Because at the end of the day, we are looking, you asked me about the issue of the future of Zimbabwe. These are things that can be done, but you cannot see the immediate. Because remember, if now we've got sufficient electricity, there's no longer load sheddings and everything like that. It means a mine can run 24 hours and the production is boosted. In that production,
we can be as extractive as we want because we have power now.
As long as we are extracting so that we can be able to develop our country, then we can extract as much as we want.
Are we developing this country, Shekin?
Yeah,
you're an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm. According to me,
we have poor civil servants.
Definitely.
We have doctors who can't afford to get medical attention at hospitals that they work.
That's true.
We have
And you know the reason why it's like that?
We have teachers who can't afford to send kids to schools that they teach.
I know that. And my mother is actually still a teacher and she's still a civil servant. And you know the reason why we are there.
And you tell me that we're developing the country. Explain to me.
No, but Dara, you have to understand something. We did something that made us to be where we are.
What did we do?
When we got our independence, remember I said we are politically independent, but we are not economically independent. We were not producing the food that our people were eating. Even the silos, whether in Chegutu or where, those silos were being filled by people. Remember where the 2000 issue, whereby there was the Land Appropriation Act, what they did, right? We were supposed to get independence, train our own cadres, make sure we are able to produce, we own the means of production in this country.
So you are saying our leadership failed us.
Definitely from that part they failed us. Because we realized it later on when we took back the land, which I also feel it was done in a very swift manner. We were supposed to gradually do it. Because number one, we took the farms. After we took the farms, what happened next? We didn't have people who can fit in the shoes of production. And what happened next? That's how we lost our glory as a producing, as a farming country. And we grew from 1980 towards right now, we are now building these roads. Myself, when I was born, the roads that we were using were built by Ian Smith. But this is the first time I'm living in a country where I'm actually saying, okay, this is how a road is actually constructed. And also in the point of construction.
Which road has been built by the Zimbabwean government?
We can talk about Beit Bridge to Harare.
That is resurfacing and repairing.
No. There's dualization that is happening there. Even if you go to Bulawayo Road, there's dualization that is happening. That's a new road altogether. That's a totally new road altogether.
Along the same road that was there?
No, but that's a construction of a road. Because if you're dualizing, we are increasing the volume of traffic. So if you're depending upon one road that has got one lane, and now you've got 4 lanes, then definitely there's going to be efficiency there. Because according to doing business, if there's going to be delay on the road, it means that's increase of cost. Because as long as the truck is on the road and it's not delivering the product, that's cost of production. That cost, that delay is going to be pumped into the end consumer, which is the customer. So if there's efficiency in that.
After 43 years of independence, we're still talking about trying to dualize a road that was left by Ian Smith.
Definitely. And that's why I'm happy, because we are where we are. At least this current regime is at least doing that.
It makes you happy that people who have been in power 43 years just suddenly have had an epiphany and decided, oh, we need to build roads now.
Isn't what?
Tell me, who's new in government?
You see, the issue that you're talking about of new, it actually happened, it once happened within our corridors where the former president won and he didn't appoint his cabinet. And then I think Honorable Madi was the Minister of Agriculture. And there was land that was taken during that particular period. And then the people, they dispute to say, when there's a new government, it means this new government no longer has, so the people that were occupying the offices, they cannot be acting in the office because there's now a new government. And they had to go to Concord to determine the definition of new.
It's not about new government.
It's about what?
When a president, an elected president, takes oath of office, the oath, because anyone who holds office as a cabinet minister holds that executive authority based on the oath that the president would have taken. That the president would have taken. So when you go to elections, your oath expires after the election.
That was the argument of those guys. And guess what?
It doesn't,
according to us right now.
It doesn't therefore mean that because you have taken a new oath of office, you now are new.
That's the definition. That's what I'm saying. This issue of new was actually, it once went to Concord.
No, but I'm simply asking this. My question was simple. These people these people who are in government right now have been in government for the past 43 years. They're the same people who are making these decisions.
But you see, Dara,
aren't they?
There are people who have been in government for the past 43 years, but there's also fresh blood that is in the government that was never there in 43 years. Henceforth, we are now seeing these changes that we are seeing, which is development of
roads. So we should credit this to the fresh blood?
We should credit it to both. Because it means the old blood has been able to adapt to the new ideas, which is constructing in capital expenditure. Because remember, the NDS one is the vision of the government. So it's not a single person who's coming with a vision. It means that's what the government has agreed upon to do, which is what? Developing capital expenditure projects.
What is your view of the Mutapa Fund?
I know that was coming. I've seen a lot of speculation about the Mutapa Fund. And what I would say is, basically from a basic understanding of a sovereign wealth fund, it serves two purposes, but one of it is more popular, whereby people are talking about intergenerational wealth, whereby we acknowledge that, okay, we have got a ubiquitous amount of minerals, that it might be gold, it might be diamond. And as much as we are extracting, these minerals are depleting, which means we need to at least get a certain percentage of royalties that can then be taken from the consolidated revenue fund, and then we put some other of those revenues into the sovereign wealth fund to create at least wealth for the next generation. You can talk, it's not a new thing, we can talk about the Norwegian government, we can talk about ADIA, we can talk about CIC for China and stuff like that. But there's also another reason why other countries end up creating a sovereign wealth fund. It actually works as a fallback plan. Let's say you've got your own focus that you've created as a country, whereby you're saying, okay, our focus, we're going to be selling this amount of minerals and we're going to get this amount of money. And then there's a fluctuation in the market. For you to be able to stabilize your fiscal revenues, you need to get to the fallback plan. So I'm here to understand if this is going to be a fallback plan to say, okay, if we are going to have at least a fiscal instability, we have a fallback plan. Let's say we had Cyclone Idai. If it happens and you've got a sovereign wealth fund, then it becomes the reserve that assists this nation to be able to be stable.
Now it has become shareholding an investment fund. It doesn't serve the purpose.
But that's your definition.
That is what the Permanent Secretary of Finance said.
You see. Okay.
It's not my definition.
Look. We have got the SOEs that are now under the sovereign fund, and if you had to ask me, according to me, there are certain advantages that comes with the sovereign wealth fund, the model that they've proposed. And I would go ahead to suggest...
It's no longer the sovereign wealth fund. It's now Mutapa Investment Fund.
But if you check, it's Mutapa Sovereign Wealth Fund.
No, it's Mutapa Investment Fund.
Okay, let's come back to that point. Whether it's Mutapa Sovereign... According to the act of that fund that they are that they've given us and we have been able to access, we have got state-owned enterprises. Some of them are underperforming, some of them are actually broke, some of them are actually under heavy debt. And
they have been instructed to cede all their shares to the Mutapa Investment Fund.
Let's discuss, we are discussing this issue.
Yeah.
Look what happens. Number one, what I would suggest is once we have now all these SEOs under the fund, they should be partially privatized. Why do I suggest a partially privatized setup? This is whereby whether they are going to be stock listed at ZSE, whether they are going to be listed at Vic4's stock exchange, this gives the checks and balance of accountability of those assets. Because remember, these are public assets and they are being bundled under this. And the moment they go under the VS, we are opening an opportunity. Let's say 60% of it is given to IPOs. This is also going to create an equal opportunity for any citizen who wants to go and access those shares publicly on a stock exchange. And once you've got a company, or if these SEOs are now under the stock exchange, that then becomes as a monitoring tool of how these assets are being managed. And that creates an opportunity for these assets, number one, to have...
The question around the Mutapa Fund is really on the aspect of the veil of secrecy that is now allowed the Mutapa Investment Fund.
But let's look, the veil of secrecy isn't when it comes to procurement.
When it comes even to selling of shares, you suggested a partial privatization. Mutapa Fund can do that. Can now privatize. But they are not going to be subjected to Parliament. They're not going to be subjected to any...
You see that we should
now, you say these are public assets.
You see, what we need to understand is how much have we been able to benefit as a nation while they were in the state that they were in. Let's talk about NRZ. Let's talk about CSC. Let's talk about Zupco. What is it that is in a private company that is actually running a successful bus operation and Zupco is failing? which means there's an aspect of incompetence, which can only be dealt with privatizing these things. And we can deal with the issue of...
You could still privatize them even by maintaining public scrutiny. You still could do that.
But if we partialize, if okay, I'll give you an example of CBZ.
If you partially
look,
privatize...
I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example, Dara, of CBZ. CBZ is partially privatized, and it's working. It's a very successful model. It's one of the most thriving banks that we have in this country. What stops POSB to do like that? Number one, it creates efficiency. Let's look at some of the assets that are under the fund. Let's look at tier one.
We're not debating that, because I think that is agreed. That is agreed, and this has been debated in Parliament for a very long time about privatizing and partially privatizing. The issue is, why do you have to do it in secret? That's the question.
The issue that is there is to deal with the issue of bureaucracy. Decision making cannot be able to be done over 6 months for us to make a decision to procure.
We're talking about privatizing here and selling of shares. Why not? Why should it be done in a veil of secrecy? That's the question. The question
is, number one, these parastatals are they are not functioning as they're supposed to do because they are living in an environment of bureaucracy. Do you get the point? That's the reason why a private company is successful more than a parastatal.
Is it not because of just looting?
No, but that's why you see. That's why you see, Dar. I'm even suggesting to say checks and balance.
Let's look at the audit report. The audit reports. It has been clear that government ministers have been looting parastatals.
They should be. Then they should be brutal.
There was looting of NASA. It is there in the audit report. There's looting of Wange Collieryman. It's there. And government has folded its hands, even with all the might and force and power.
But right now, is it not actually a remedy for these assets not to be plundered again?
If they were plundering them whilst they were under public scrutiny, just imagine what they would do where there's a veil.
But why are we seeing it from that perspective only? In as much as we should see it from that perspective, are we also not seeing it as a move to try to deal with this kind of bureaucracy?
I am a watchdog. I ask.
Which is good.
Yes,
which is good.
I ask questions
that are supposed to be asked.
Over concerns.
Exactly.
Not over celebrations.
No.
So if it works well, it's fine.
Definitely.
Yes.
And all of us, we actually want it to work well.
Asking you in terms of the concern. If people were stealing in public, what more when it's dark?
That's why I'm offering a solution to say they should be partially privatized so that they can be listed on the stock exchange.
The solution is accepted. I listened to it, and I think many people agree with it. In fact, Parliament agreed with it, and they pushed for the privatization of parastatals. This is where you had actually NRZ was at one point there was a deal to sell it to DIG, right? Yeah. So that's the question is.
But you see, that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. If then an SEO, state enterprise or state-owned enterprise, is listed on the stock exchange, every shareholder now has a right to understand the finances of that particular.
Before that, that's the question.
Remember, this is an act.
Because these shares have been bundled.
True.
Right? And at the moment, there's no shareholder except government. At the moment.
Exactly.
And anything between now and maybe at the point of selling, even when they're being sold, you will not know how they've been sold, to whom they've been sold, at what cost, what was the due diligence.
But remember, even the PMSEC in ZCON, he said we are going to come back with a report of how this is going to be done.
After it has been done.
No, but look. Why are we speculating over something that should be given report and feedback to the public over?
Don't trust their government.
But listen, look.
The government has shown its people over and over.
But Dara, you see Dara.
It can't be trusted.
You see Dara.
Are you in agreement?
No, I'm not in agreement.
People banked. Their savings were wiped out.
True. The banking sector needs a revisit.
Government was at the center of that, not the banking sector. Government came back to the people and said, no, now we are protecting your foreign currency, we are calling nostro accounts and stuff like that. People trusted that.
You are going to zig again.
People trusted that government. that government duped them again. People don't trust their government, and it's a fact.
And these are things that we need to acknowledge. Henceforth, we're having a discussion like this. These are things that we have to make sure they are corrected.
So if government puts a veil where people don't even, where there is mistrust, I mean, the mistrust gets even worse, doesn't it?
But you see, Dara, the issue of mistrust or the issue of the Sovereign Wealth Fund, as we are discussing and debating it, the fact that we are publicly debating it and we are actually even putting our own suggestions to say if they can do this, if they can do this, which means we are all advocating for accountability at the end of the day.
Let's hope we get it. Now, Sheki, you were appointed by the president. Let's talk about your appointment by the president.
You see, there's because of even the Forbes magazine listing, I've been able to see a lot of capital ventures. And what these companies or what these entities do, they look for green investments. And what they simply do is they look if there is going to be a favorable investment that needs to be done in Zimbabwe. And if it makes sense, economic sense to them, then they come and then they invest. So the issue of me working with different ministries is simply because I've always been an advocate of how business can be done within our country.
Let's just talk about the appointment itself. What is the name of the appointment? What is the nature of the appointment?
That nature is being an interlocutor. Let's say, for example, there's a ministry that needs injection of capital. And then there's a company that I know, or there are companies that I know that are willing to invest in that particular regard. Then that company, they can come, they sit with the right ministers, whether through ZIDA, whatever. If it makes economic sense for them to invest in that particular endeavor, whether it's a mining sector or it's a what, then they work with that ministry. I don't know if you get the point. So it's more of like creating opportunities for our country to get foreign direct investments within its different spheres, whether it's the Ministry of Health, whether it's the Ministry of Energy, whether it's the Ministry of Mining. So if there are people who are saying, okay, we are from the Paris Club, we need to invest in the country, and we've got this amount of money, or we've got this X amount of money, and this money we want to directly invest it in this particular line of business, then they have to do the due diligence, sitting with the responsible ministries, and they come up with the roadmap. If they are going to embark on a journey, then there has to be a benefit of the government. And then there also has to be the development and the capacitation of our people so that they can get employment.
Amazing. And maybe as we wrap up, because we have had an extensive discussion, but in your own words, you know, as you look at the people of Zimbabwe and talk to them, what would you want to tell them that would make Zimbabwe a better place? Instead of many of us, many who are viewed as just pawns
in the chessboard.
On the chessboard. Whose pawn is it?
I think what I would say is one thing that we need to understand as a people is developing your country to become successful should predominantly be your own agenda as a people, as us as Zimbabweans. And I believe every citizen should be able to take part in the development of our country. Because every time we start talking about, whether we talk about infrastructure development, there's a chain of opportunities that has been created along that line of an agenda. For example, we are building roads. Every citizen has a right, if they want or if they are to pursue that right, to go and peg a quarry site and be able to supply the companies that are going to be doing the construction of the road, which means there's an opportunity of a business that has been created by just saying we want to build a dam, we want to do this, we want to do this. So my advice is success predominantly starts from within yourself. Like I'm giving an example. I heard that there's a road that is going to be done in this particular region. My knowledge that I've been acquiring over the years should give me the wisdom to go and say, okay, I want to peg all the dwellers that are probably in a 10-kilometer stretch or in a 100-kilometer stretch that is closer to the road. As long as I'm going to be the only available guy who has got the quarry that the company needs to be supplied with, there's no way they're going to be coming to Norton and get trucks to supply a road that is now in Chekutu. So if I've got a mining site that is there and I can apply for it, which I'm allowed to do so, let's look at the opportunities that are surrounding different developments that are being done within the country. In as much as I acknowledge that we have our own problems as a state, we have got our own issues that we're having. We can talk about the Ministry of Health. We can talk about what we're seeing within our hospitals. But I would say what gives me hope, or what gives me at least a glimpse of a bright future, is the fact that I'm starting to see things like I was explaining, to say, if I see Wange 7 and 8 being developed, I know there is going to be electricity sufficient enough to supply the farmer who wants to do agriculture. Because these farmers, if they go to the bank wanting to get a line of credit, the bank, if they know that these guys are never going to be able to have power, they will not give them the line of credit. But if a farmer now has a consistent and a bankable supply of electricity, then they can even plan and prepare their fields in accordance. And once they get the lines of credit that they require, they then do agriculture. So my hope, my last words as we are finishing the conversation is, let's be optimistic. And as much as we are being optimistic, let's acknowledge that we have got problems and let's deal with our problems as a people.
Amazing. I want to thank you very much, Sheki, for having us and for this conversation. Now, Zimbabwe, as a people, we need to appreciate that we all have different views.
That's true.
And we, as young and old people, we need to come and sit on the table.
Exactly. And relate.
And ensure that the debate that we have is intellectual and not physical.
That's true.
Or does not abuse the next.
That's true. That's true.
Now, for our country to move forward, we need to introspect.
That's true.
We need to connect.
That's true.
And we need to deal with meritocracy more than clientism or nepotism.
That's true. Let a person who deserves and the person who's got a merit be given space to demonstrate.
Elections are a public relation of governance.
True.
When a public relations exercise goes bad, it affects everything.
That's true.
It is very important that from the queens to the kings, we don't forget the pawns.
Definitely.
This is the Free Talk in proud partnership with the Frederick Newman Foundation, and I was in conversation with Sheki. Thank you very much, my brother.
Thank you so much.
Wish you the best.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for allowing me time. It's been a refreshing conversation and a critical one. And I believe some will benefit from our conversations and people will also get one or two that they can learn from. But thank you so much for coming through. It's an honor.
Amazing. Please don't forget to follow us on Heart and Soul on all our platforms, on all our social media handles. Continue to follow the conversations that we are having as we bring conversation to the people and change our nation. Citizens must talk to each other, not through each other. I'm your host as usual, Darabi. Until next time, thank you for joining me and my guest.